my road with educating people to find solutions has always been to search for simplicity. What is the
Mhm.
simplest way to explain something?
Mhm. Jednoducho.
You
Mhm.
try to break it down into this and that, and get people to see that this is good and that is bad.
Mhm.
And then take another little step, saying, okay, now we've got this. What
Mhm.
about this part of this and this part of this, right? And you you've got to break it down into something that people can understand, that people can see. And it's got to be very simple, right?
Mhm.
Um, you know, the most popular things in the world are very simple,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
In general, there are great works of art. Don't get me wrong. There are great works of art that transcend everything and everybody understands and are very beautiful. And symphonies and paintings in cathedrals, and there are these great works of art.
Mhm. Yeah.
But in general, people relate to the things that are simplest. Yeah. Uh, Pop music is pretty simple. Verse,
Mhm.
chorus, verse,
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's a pretty simple concept. The things that people need on a daily basis: um, clothes, food,
Mhm.
energy,
Mhm.
transportation. Um, these are things that people can relate to and that they can understand. Um, and and yet the problem is always a problem of belief, and all I can do is at this present moment break things down into good and evil.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't see any other way through it. I don't see any other way to
Mhm.
solve the problem other than to break things
Mhm.
down into good and evil, and to to study the nature of good and evil, and to understand it,
Mhm.
and um, to get people to recognize it. And I don't think that there's any other way to
Mhm.
solve these problems, because people are playing the people are playing the waiting game. You know that people want to wait and see who is going to win,
Mhm.
and then
Exactly.
they want to join the winning side
Mhm.
and say, "Look, I'm one of the winners." But in the bigger picture, in a religious context, you can't do that in life, because you're alive or you're dead.
Mhm.
You can't wait to see what happens, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Exactly.
You've got to act now to have
Mhm.
any understanding of what is happening around about you. Um, so only by breaking things down in that way, and getting people to focus on that and realize that, and saying to people, "Are you good or are you bad?" And the person could say, "Well, I'm."
Mhm.
Most people say, "Well, I'm in general a good person." You say, "Ah, in general you're a good person, right?" Then you know that there's some things you need to work on, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Then if you know there's some things you need to work on, then you understand the nature of good and evil, which is within us all, that there's all things that we can be better at, because in the Christian sense we're all sinners, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and and there needs to be there needs to be a greater understanding of whether or not people are actually good people or bad people, which people had in the past. There's sort of an acceptance now that everything and everyone is okay, except everyone as an individual.
Mhm.
But we deep down inside we know that's not a good idea, because we're not all the same. Yeah, so there's music that you like, which is different from music that I like. Yeah. And so I could play some music and you would be like, oh, turn it off. What is that? And I can understand that because I feel that way when some other people play music. So for, I'm sure we can find something, right? I'm sure we can find something that we both like. The Beatles or
Yes.
Sting or
Yes. Right.
there's things that transcend everything. Uh, so we we begin to transform people by breaking everything down into a simplistic choice. Do you want to pay more or do you want to pay less? Right? Do you want do you want to go in this direction or that direction? Do you want to spend time on this or spend time on that? Um, do you want to have this as your target or that as your target? You know, which direction do you want to go in? And to get people to make these simple binary choices to try to see a bigger picture, because the answers are, you know, from a Christian perspective, we're experiencing the mark of the beast. This is the mark of the beast. This is Revelation. The last book of the Bible
Mm-hmm.
is Revelation. And this is this was written by John on the island of Patmos when he had a vision that Christ came to him and told him to write down what was going to happen in the future and to take this information and send it to all the churches. There were 7 major churches at the time, and he had to send it to all 7. And so in the last book of the Bible, Jesus comes back from the dead and tells John that people will become slaves. He said the whole planet will become slaves in the future.
Mm-hmm.
He said they will be slaves under a mark or a sign called the mark of the beast, and that you will only be able to exist, to live, and he says specifically to buy and sell. To buy and sell. You will only be able to buy and sell if you have this mark.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you don't have the mark,
Mm-hmm.
you will not be able to exist within society as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. I understand.
And there are of course many more details, and this was written 2,000 years ago. And there were many times in the past where people said, "Oh, this is the mark of the beast," or "That is the mark of the beast," and yet it does appear to happen again and again and again that there's a mark, there's a sign that separates the world into those who are allowed to do things and those who are not allowed to do things. And the continuation of the story, it goes backwards and forwards in Revelation, but you know, he talks about death and famine and and that he will return. That's that's in the end. That's how the book finishes. I mean, it's such a great book, right? You've got this. It's like a magical fantasy story, which it's like a cross between Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia or something. And the Chronicles of Narnia are a Christian story. I mean that's Christianity in there. And if you look at the work of um, Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, there's also a Christian theme running through that as well. One ring to rule them all. There's this quest for power and control, and how humans, when they have too much power and too much control, they can't control themselves. And so the book of Revelation contains all of this information about everything that's happening today, and it ends with the fact that Jesus says, "I will return." And and question mark. And so ends the New Testament. And of course, all of these churches and all of these preachers, or all of them, a lot of them are saying, "Oh, Jesus is coming now. Now is the time." But they're always saying now, because that's what's dramatic and interesting. But there's something there, there's something in the stories, there's something in the information, there's a lesson that we need to learn that we obviously haven't learned. Yeah. And I think part of it is the lesson of understanding the power of things beyond our understanding. That's a very strange thing to say. That there are things that we just cannot understand that exist within the world and around about us, and we will never be able to understand them. And they're very powerful. It's like something that doesn't exist, but it's there. But it is up to each person to search for it themselves, I think. And let me give you an example of the power of belief. Let's say you're an atheist, which is still a belief. Let's say you believe that you live and there are no gods and no spirits and no other dimensions, and you live and you die, and that's it, right? You come, but then where do you come from and where do you go? It's like, well, you just go back into the earth, but that's just, where do we come from? It doesn't really answer that either. It's still a question. And so most of the world is now driven and motivated by the philosophy of the self, which is that you don't have to worry about what happens after you die. But this is in a negative sense, because it's in a negative sense because we are taught there's nothing. We're basically taught you live, you die, the end. There's nothing, there's no more. However, if you're a Christian, you don't die. Because you're already dead and reborn. That's the whole point of Christianity. Most people take the atheist will most probably fear death, because beyond death there is either nothing or the unknown. There is no future in that for them. But if you're Christian, technically you're already dead when you're living, because you have sacrificed yourself to follow the Christian tradition, which means basically the death of oneself and the rebirth, which will be my book next year. I'm planning to
Mhm.
write
Mhm.
that book, which is
Mhm.
about the principle of rebirth, which really is you then don't fear death because you're already dead.
Mhm.
Not dead and doing nothing, but yourself you have sacrificed in order to be another self, to be a better self, to be uh, um, to work for the needs of Jesus or God or within the Christian tradition. Not only do you not die if you are judged to be good, not only do you not die, but you get an opportunity to wait for everyone that you love,
Mhm. Mhm.
which means that death is not the end.
I don't know. I don't know.
But that's doubt, and but that's partly intellect and partly doubt. Okay, because it's very important to say I don't know when we don't know. Yet at the same time, if we don't know, we are in limbo. We are we are in the middle. Yeah. Remember I said that the best way to help people to understand things is to make simple choices between A
Mhm.
and B.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because if you are I don't know,
Mhm.
then you're stuck in the middle and
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
can't go either way. And this is the problem for most people is that they're they can't do it or they don't want to do it or they're not ready to do it. Um, they're not ready to choose a side, pick and choose a side. And we're at a point in history where to not choose a side is to choose. The same way that to not believe is still a belief.
Mhm.
So when people, when people say, "I don't know," well, that's a choice. You've chosen. You choose to do nothing in that situation. The same way that even not voting is still a vote in an election because the
Mhm.
percentage of your vote goes to whoever got the most
Mhm.
votes anyway. Yeah, it's a mathematical statistic,
Mhm.
right? So even if you choose not to vote, your vote is still counted because your vote goes to the winner automatically if you don't vote. That's 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 how it works. Now, personally, everyone's got to choose what they want to live with. I don't vote in any election, which means the percentage of my vote goes to the winner, whether I like it or not. And I don't like this, but that's the choice that I made because, to be honest, I don't know who is the best person, right? So,
Mhm.
um, and somebody will say, well, you need to get informed, and maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. Maybe we all need to get informed. It's not a bad thing. Yeah, it's not something that we should run away from. We should accept the fact that um, that that we can all be more informed and uh, make better choices. Because if good people do nothing, then the world will go to hell because bad people will run everything if good people do nothing. But then that's the way the world is being designed. We're living in a construct. The world is being designed around about us.
Mhm.
Um, Partly the world is being destroyed because that is control. That is the movement of people. That is destroy the countryside, destroy the waters, and everybody will move to the city. Right? That's part of what is happening on the planet. Make reality so terrible that everybody will turn to a virtual reality, but they will want to spend all their time in it. Um, I believe that virtual reality can connect people. I believe that virtual reality
Mhm.
can help us with education and technology, and it's, the people's connection with virtual reality is the same way that people understood Skype like 30 years ago. People had a problem
Mhm.
understanding that you can
Mhm.
video call
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
with with
Yeah.
with, with people, but
Mhm.
now it's normal, and so the virtual world will be the same experience.
Mhm.
But there's a strong push to train people
Mhm.
to become familiar and accustomed with using that technology, but there's also a great danger there as well.
Mhm.
You know, like playing a game on a computer can be fun for an hour a day, right? It can be fun. It can be escapism. You like watching TV, right? There's nothing
Mhm.
wrong. There's no harm done, right? To a
Mhm.
certain extent. Um, but if you watch TV all day, every day, then 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 it becomes a problem. Um, so there's a lot of the unfortunately willful, meaning that
Mhm.
it's planned destruction of certain environments because um, a lot of people just don't care about what's going to happen, and
Mhm.
they think that technology is going to save us all, and
Mhm.
technology is powerful, but technology will only save the people who understand the technology, which is
Mhm.
very few people.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Mhm.
very few people. And services, the
Mhm.
the service industry is disappearing as well. I mean, I don't know quite where that fits
Mhm.
in. That fits into sort of people's choices about future and jobs, and there was an organization in the past called Sun Microsystems. Sun Microsystems was one of the first
Mhm.
big computer technology companies. It was with Apple and Microsoft, and it was in
Mhm.
that era. It was run by a man called Bill Joy. And Bill
Mhm.
Joy wrote an article for a magazine entitled Why the Future Does Not Need Us. And in it he explained how once the technology got to a point where technology could recreate technology, like machines could repair machines,
Mhm.
there would be no need for people, right? Think about in the past, big factories had lots of people working in them. Now they have much less people and much more machines.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's good for the big companies. It's expensive at the beginning, but cheaper in the long
Mhm.
term. But it means there's less jobs available for people.
Mhm.
Jobs give people some kind of level of security in their life. And we are at a point now where computers can do everything. The robot doctors can perform operations.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, robots can deliver the post. Robots can drive your car. Robots can fly the planes. Robots can
Mhm.
make videos. Robots can make recommendations and suggestions
Mhm.
to you. They call it
In the restaurant.
exactly. Exactly. Um, there's no need for people. Right, the we don't even need actors because we can have digital recreations of the
Mhm.
actors. Look, it will not be long before films have dead people in them. It won't be long before they bring back John Wayne or Humphrey Bogart, or they'll bring them back from the dead and put them in
Mhm.
films because the technology will be there to do it.
Mhm.
And people won't know. People won't know. I mean, we, we're there already. Do you think when you watch on television on the news
Mhm.
the American president reading a speech from the White House, do you think he's really in the White House? Really?
I don't.
Do you think he's really? Do you think he's?
I.
Do you think he's really in the White House? Because I think he's on a film stage somewhere. Because
Mhm.
it's the lights and the camera and everything has to look perfect. And
Mhm. Mhm.
okay, sometimes he might be in the White House,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
but there are many films, right?
I agree.
It's all
Mhm.
scripted and directed and acted out, and it that's the bizarre, strange world that not only are we living in, but the children are trying to understand what is real. And
Mhm. Mhm.
one of the most common ways to control people is to confuse them. Confused people are easy to control
Mhm.
because they don't have anything to hold on to. They don't know what is real and what is not real. So,
Mhm.
any magician will tell you if you're going to pick someone from the audience to do something, pick the person who is the most confused because they will be the most suggestible, the most easy to work with.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and this can be done through neurolinguistics, but there's it can be done physically as well. And so the children are confused, therefore they are easy to control. And this is what is happening. People will people don't know what's coming, right? They have
Mhm.
no idea. They're not ready. They're still sleeping. Everyone's still asleep. Everyone is still asleep. They don't know what's coming. They they people are living like it's 1950, and
Exactly.
we're in 2021, but really the technology is like 2050 or something, right?
Mhm.
The people don't know. They have no idea what's going on.
Mhm.
They're like fish who live in water but don't know what water is, right? They don't think much about what
Mhm.
is around them. As like we don't walk around thinking about air and oxygen and how we breathe. We don't consciously do
Mhm.
that on a daily basis. But this reality. We know that's
Mhm.
reality for us. Most people they don't get it yet. They're still chasing. They're still somewhat in the system of a matrix, still chasing something, don't know what they're chasing, don't know where they're going, don't know why they're going there. Um, all they know is that they want to feel good, and it's hard for them to do that in a world that makes criminals out of normal people. So it's they don't see, and this and the very easily confused because not all of them, some are
Mm-hmm.
some are awake, but it's always a minority. Um, perhaps because it's perhaps because like there's a very old communist saying that if you stand up, you will be like a nail.
Mm-hmm.
If you stand up, you will be like a nail,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody will come along and hammer you down, right? If you stand up, if you stand up, you will be knocked down. And um, everyone really does fear that to a certain. Everyone is walking around the original environment. Everyone is walking around the invisible virus. It's a great illusion because people are like, ooh, people. Go over
Mm-hmm.
here,
Yes,
and go over
very
here, and go over here, and step to the side, and go back a
mm-hmm.
little bit, and do I have enough space? And
Where is that?
no, and you see it everywhere. People are nervous, and
Mm-hmm.
they're a little bit apprehensive, and they're frightened of each other, and sometimes it's because they're scared, and sometimes it's so sometimes it's because they're scared, and sometimes it's because they care, but still they do the same thing. And this reinforcing the invisible problem
Mm-hmm.
is very crazy. Um, almost it's almost a madness, really. Um, to to a certain extent, it,
Uh-huh.
it's almost madness when you try to avoid something that you don't know if it exists or not, right? I mean, it's just bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Show me a peer-reviewed scientific study that says that masks are a good
Yeah.
idea. It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
I can show you 50 studies that say it's
Mm.
bad, right? I can show you a lot of studies that say it's bad, and I can also give you common sense, which is
Mm.
you
Mm.
if you feel like you want to wear a mask, then at least change your mask every day, right?
Mm.
Because if you don't,
Mm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
breathing in
Mm-hmm.
yesterday's
Mm-hmm. Yes.
bacteria that you breathed out.
Mm-hmm.
It's stupid.
Mm. Yes.
So so if yeah, so
Mm.
if you want to wear a mask,
Mm.
don't be so stupid that you wear the same mask
Mm-hmm.
2 days in a row. And don't be the and don't and put it in your pocket
Mm-hmm.
or leave it in the car or put it on a shelf somewhere or
Mm.
because I mean how hygienic is that? Right? You know, and look, it's
Mm.
I'll tell you what it is.